Hey guys, this is Josh here from Live the Movie Crew. I'm here with Eric. How's it going, Eric?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So, if you're new to these videos, what we basically do here, we're called Live the Movie Crew, and the reason why is because, whenever you watch a movie, there's always that main character who goes through some sort of challenge or some sort of adversity in the plot. They eventually find out that um, the adversity they're going through is usually just a roadblock of getting to one of the goals that they want, that they had set out to achieve for themselves. Certain thing that they're doing wrong that they need to fix, but in reality, different. And so it's kind of our model as like a leadership type group, and to be able to live lives that we enjoy for ourselves and to be able to overcome adversity in a similar way. So we do a couple of things in the group. One of those things is we occasionally have mastermind conferences, usually every couple of months, so that we've kind of put that on the back burner just because one of our members actually has been pregnant for the last several months and just bore a new beautiful baby girl into the world a couple days ago. And so that probably explains why she's not on the call tonight as well. But nonetheless, Mallory, we love you, and we want you to know that it's awesome that your new baby girl is here, and I hope that you're having the time of your life with her. But anyways, so I'm sure as Mal's baby gets a little bit older, up again on the other side. So, and the other thing we do is we every month, and we use these hangouts to talk about the book. And so the book we've been reading for the past month is called Success: Why You Fail, Where Others Succeed. Peace, which his name is spelled very weird because he's French. But the book is mainly about basically living a fulfilling life and setting goals properly at the end. He goes through a little bit of a chapter of setting proper goals at the end. And so what I'll do tonight is mainly, for the most part, is go through some of the highlights of the entire book. The book's only about 70 pages long or so, and so it is a really quick read, but it's also pretty well packed with a lot of good information too. So I'll be able to cover that for the most part. I'm actually just going to close my door here for a second. I think my mom's coming home. Okay. So I'm going to start on page 10 where about being basically the ability to reframe any situation in the positive. Interesting because it's always better to look at things in a positive light, as you probably would imagine. One of the things he does is he actually lists out a bunch of questions that you can go through in a process, and that would help you basically reframe any situation in a positive way. And so the questions he asks are: what can I do about it? How can I reframe the situation? What can I learn from the situation? How will it help me become a better person? And will I remember this in 20 years? A whole example about how he got stuck in the Philippines, and he was trying to go to, I guess, a place called Boracay. But, he got delayed because of a flood. So he wasn't sure if he was going to end up getting there just because of that. And so he went through those 5 questions. And so he said, what can you do about it? You can just wait. How can I reframe the situation? It'll make a great story to tell my friends, and it's the first time I've experienced a real flood. People that he otherwise wouldn't have been able to meet right there at the hotel. And then if they reached Boracay, he would better enjoy his time there. he asked himself, what can he learn from the situation? He said, how can he said he can feel proud of himself by staying calm and not wasting energy. He said, by needlessly panicking or complaining about a situation I can do nothing about. And then he asked if he can remember it in 20 years, and he said, probably, but it won't be a bad memory at all. So if you ever have something bad happen to you, like, you get in a car crash or something like that happens, those are some questions you can ask yourself to kind of in a positive light. So a couple pages later, he starts talking about the subconscious. The subconscious is always there, he says, to protect you. Always, your subconscious always wants to make sure that any bad situation that happened to you in the past doesn't happen again. And so, what was I going to say? Let's see if we get an example in here. Well, let's say you have you end up in a bad relationship, and you start to think, oh, I don't want to end up in that type of a relationship again, because the person that I was in a relationship with was, a loser for all intents and purposes. And so it's actually funny because there was a time when I went to Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins. He was actually doing an intervention on this one woman who literally said, "All guys are dicks," and it just turned out that she was just in such a bad relationship with a guy, and she had moved all over the place and had plans on moving back to the United States. And she just ended up in bad relationship after bad relationship, and didn't really realize that it's possible that that she could end up with a well-meaning man. So he also said that he also said to ask the question, if that's true, what does that mean for me? And so he gives the example in here that if he talks about somebody who's anxious about attending a party because she thought, I won't get to know anybody, and there's this, or I won't get to have a relationship with anybody, and so if that's true, what does that mean to me? That I'll go home alone. If that's true, what does that mean to me? Nobody fancies me. Then I'll be all alone. If that's true, I'm undesirable. And so that's kind of how we get to a lot of limiting beliefs. So one way to deconstruct those beliefs is really just to get more information. So, like, for example, like if you never knew that a couple could 50 years, it might be easy to think that all couples just getting bored of each other after 15, 20 years. And then you start to say, oh, okay, well, I guess that's not the case necessarily. So let's see what else. Oh, he also mentions that 90% of the thoughts that you have today are the same ones you had yesterday. And let's see, where does he put this? He says you are not your thoughts. And the thoughts that you run every time are not really useful. It says they're essentially useless. And he says on page 24 that the bottom line is that we don't even know every one of them as our truth. So that's that's in terms of they're not truly indicative of reality. In any case, you can make something different, and it doesn't really exist in the real world. So, or anything to say?
Yeah, excuse me. I think that, a lot of the points that are made in the book are awesome. And then, there's stuff that I wrote about in my book. It's stuff that me and you have discussed before when we were in Cutco. I think it's a real good book to summarize a lot of the ideas that we've learned many times in the past and, reiterate them. A lot of it's about beliefs, the subconscious mind and all that. And I think you pointed out some good points that, the subconscious mind, it tries to protect you, but it does it in a very black and white way. So it says if A looks like B, then A must be B, must be the same thing when it's really not. So like you said with the example of like a bad relationship, it's like, well, what's the identifying characteristic? Oh, they're a guy. So now every time I see a guy that gets too close, that's just like that. But that's not actually true. It's the behavior of the guy and the type of person, and also like the type of person you're attracting. But also, like you were talking about with beliefs, when we have beliefs that keep getting reinforced. And I think one of the powerful things about reading books and attending seminars and going to programs and different things like that is you have opportunity to have some of your beliefs challenged, and not necessarily that you're looking for every belief that you have to change, but it opens your mind up to the possibility of different ways of looking at things. And if you just stay in your little box, if you really think about it, right, you can really stay in a little box nowadays, right? Because you have complete control of what you experience, right? You have your Facebook page, right? But whatever you like or comment or share, that stuff comes continually through your feed. So if you like a bunch of things on, different pages of people that you're into and all think the same way and do the same thing, that's the only thing that's going to come to your news feed. Everyone knows at this point there's news channels that, they don't explicitly, but basically they favor one form of politics or another. So you basically could have your own little box with your own politics and your own beliefs and your own views. And, even if you're not looking for your deepest beliefs to change, you still want to have some of your beliefs challenged, because you want to be able to see other perspectives, and you want the ones that are, any belief that you have that's disempowering to move past that. You talked about the example of the woman at Date with Destiny and a couple of the other examples from the book. Having those limiting beliefs, they don't help that person and they don't help somewhere else. And the only way you're really going to get past that is to see evidence otherwise. And to do that, you got to read and be around different people and go to events and learn things. Because otherwise you'll just keep reinforcing the same ideas, which will continue to make them more and more true to you. And I think if you think about the title, that's why people fail. They continue to have the same beliefs, same ideas, surround themselves with other people that, think the same way and have failed the same way, and, kind of hold you back. So definitely good points.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Yeah, it's true too that if you kind of stay in that same bubble, that that's essentially basically like how life will not really improve for you. um and so always making sure that you open yourself up to new and different experiences is really important too. Let's see, where did I leave off here? Okay, yeah. So in the next section, this is kind of I gave these guys a homework exercise in terms of just being able to do this section here. So page 31, your definition of success is all that matters. You really have to take time to define this for you. And so that can mean different things to different people. So some people will tell you that you need to have a certain amount of money to be successful. Some people will tell you that you need to have a certain job or live in a certain area, or a certain type of personality or whatever. None of that really matters. What really matters is what makes you feel most fulfilled, most happy. And so, you can essentially, I think if you don't define that for yourself, it makes it very easy for you to get lost in things that you don't care about. Because you might think, oh, I need such and such a job to be successful. Like I have to be like a doctor to be successful or something like that. When if you really hate medicine, like it just doesn't make sense, to say that you need that to be successful. So, you have to define what that is for you. And, maybe it is to be a doctor, but that's your decision. So, um, Maurice does go through some of the main character, what he calls the main characteristics of a great life purpose on page 32. He says that they're timeless, universal, inspiring, and they transcend your ego. Which he basically means to say that a true life purpose should come from a place of love, not fear. So, all right. So, another thing he says in here too is that you're responsible for everything in your life. And so, what I had actually had a so life book. And so, what I had in Eric and Mallory is go next and scale of 1 to 10 of how well. Okay, I'm losing Microsoft Word here. Okay. Just rate yourself on a basis of 1 to 10, how you're doing in each of those aspects. And so my Microsoft Word was glitching a little bit here. So, all right. So the categories that I have in here are accepting reality, attitude, happiness, relationships, emotions, career, and time. And if you haven't done this, I definitely encourage you to do so. I encourage you to pause the video here if you're watching it on replay, and go ahead and take care of this. So on pages 35 to 49, I think it is, Maurice goes through all these aspects of life and comments on them a little bit. And so what you should do is go to each aspect and just rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 how well you're taking responsibility in those areas of life. Write down why you say that and what potentially what you can do to improve those areas. So Eric, I don't know if you want to share first or if you want me to share first what I've put down here. You're muted.
I cannot share. Did you hear my whole speech? So let's see. So for accepting reality, I put 8. Did you want to do like one at a time or just run through them and then how do you think?
I think running through them is probably a little bit easier.
All right, so accepting reality, I put 8. I do a very, as you'll see, a lot of my numbered answers are very similar, and I think all of them kind of come down, or most of them come down to the fact that, in the moment, just like everybody else, when something doesn't go your way or you don't do something you're supposed to, we all get a little off track or a little anxious or whatever. Long term, I feel like I have a very good perspective on things. So that's where a lot of my numbers come from. So I put accepting reality 8. I kind of talked about very similarly to at the beginning of the book where the author talks about asking yourself those questions. I sort of wrote down some similar questions. Things like, what's the lesson here? How will this continue my story? Kind of things like we talk about with Live the Movie, the whole concept of, when something goes wrong, it's a scene in your movie. So that's what I kind of wrote down for accepting reality. Some action steps are, when you get kind of triggered by something that you can't control or something goes wrong, asking yourself those questions to put it in perspective pretty quick. Second one, attitude, I put 7. I think that same thing in the moment, kind of getting hooked by things sometimes, but, being active, eating well, those type of things I have plans for, but continuing to follow through on them. Sometimes traveling makes it a little bit more difficult too. So, but I wrote down to even at home, try to do 15,000 steps a day and get back on my eating schedule and stuff like that. So that's what I wrote down for attitude. Happiness, I put 9. I would say 10, except for, just like I said before, every once in a while you get triggered for, for a minute or two or whatever, you kind of get off track and have a bad thought or two. So always room to improve. I wrote down, gratitude each morning, put things in perspective, get yourself in a good state. I run every morning, and, get yourself ready to go so that you're not reacting to the day. You're kind of leading the way, and if things go wrong, you're, strong and ready to attack them. Number 4 is relationships. I put 7. I think a lot of the relationships I have with people are going very well. I'd say that number comes more from the fact that, I have a lot of friends from Cutco and Bentley and from school and things like that I haven't stayed in close touch with. So, one of the action steps I wrote down was try to reach out to one of my friends each week to be able to, even if I'm not staying in touch with all of them every week, at least reach out to somebody. So on a regular basis, I'm catching up with somebody. And then thinking about, close relationships, continuing to set goals and talk about the goals that we have. So that's what I put. Emotions, I also put 7, same thing, very similar to attitude, eating well, continuing to move, getting yourself in a great state, things like that. Career, I put down 9. I think what I'm doing right now, I enjoy. There's a few side things like this and another project I'm working on. So obviously there's always room for improvement, but, going pretty well. Time, I think taking more time to, schedule more time for reading, I think could be important. And, after staring at a computer screen all day, I found that, reading can be a little bit more difficult than it used to be. So one of the things I wrote down was this month to check into potentially signing up for Audible, which is listening to audiobooks. It's an Amazon program, so you get a book every, once a month you get a book for your price, and then your subscription fee, and then after that you can obviously purchase more, but you can listen to them, so you can be walking and moving around and not necessarily having to pay attention fully, and still get a lot of the ideas. And I won't stop reading books, but to try to add and continually feed your mind, I think that could be a good idea. So Josh, I have the ebook version of the book as well, and they had an 8th category. I don't know if they don't have it on your version, but the 8th category was, how good are you at saying no?
Yeah, I think that's in my book. I just didn't consider it a separate category. I kind of lump those together.
Oh, okay. That's all right. So I did that as a separate one. I actually put on that as 5. Sometimes when you're not crystal clear on what your goals are, which I am pretty clear, but when you're not, and you kind of want to, if I do this, I'll make more money. If I do this, it'll help somebody out. If I do this, it'll, make somebody not mad at me. So sometimes I get hooked into doing stuff that really doesn't matter that much. Just someone asked me to do something, but it really doesn't help me towards my goals, or doesn't really benefit anyone. It's just, kind of just pleasing people. So I actually put that down as a 5. Action steps, being very clear on what the goals are, and then kind of asking yourself, is doing this going to bring me closer or further away to my goals? And even if it's something completely unrelated, like, you have work goals and health goals and whatever, and you're talking about, well, someone invites you out, to dinner, they invite you out for the night, you say, well, is it going to bring me closer or further away from my goals? Well, maybe if it's partying and you got so many other things to do, and that's not really beneficial to you or your health, well, then you might say no. If it's going out to dinner to see an old friend, that might not directly benefit your goals, but it might remind you of why you're going after these goals that you have, And that might be really important. Or Josh, like you with your concerts, that might not be something that, necessarily directly is going to get you a job at a college, or directly it's going to impact one of your goals, but doing that every once in a while makes you feel good and excited about life, that you want to, continue to pursue those goals. So that's one of the things we're saying yes to. One of those things actually would bring you closer. So, so that was my list.
All right. Awesome. Cool. Well, I will go through mine as well. So for accepting reality, I said 7 on this. I'm pretty good at letting go of mistakes that I've made once I realize that I can no longer do anything to rectify the situation. But there are still a bunch of times where I think I still insist that things go my way, or I'll start complaining about them a little bit until I start to realize myself that, I can't, change anything that's going on here. So so for just improvement steps, I just said, just recognize situations where where I can't do anything to improve the situation, just accept them, even when I want something else to happen. So I said 5, and I think as of late, and one of the guys that was pretty powerful in this exercise is that I've been letting others' attitudes around me kind of. And so, what I can do is stop worrying about trying to impress people, and just decide to use my happiness to make other people around me happier. And that's kind of the same thing for happiness too. I gave myself a 5 for happiness, and so and I think a lot too has come from me tying my happiness to my career choice, which, seeing as how I'm not, well, I guess I'm technically now doing an internship in that field, but I still haven't really been as happy as I could be. And so so I said I said for an improvement step to redefine my standard of happiness to something that I can control, and decide to use that as a standard rather than other people's ideas. Relationships, I said 6. There are times when I can be pretty selfish, but I try not to let that show for the most part. And so I do try to do things for others that basically try to do things for others and not for myself. But there are definitely times where I definitely fall short on that. So more time to helping my family. Obviously, helping your family is the best way to be unselfish, and probably one of the easiest ways too. 8. I do occasionally have strong reactions to people and events around me. For the most part, I tend not to display anger or anything like that. There are definitely situations. A lot of times it'll happen at work when I do get angry at people, or actually, I put down when I'll get angry sometimes with people for such simple things as driving slowly in front of me. And so I've been a little bit better with this as of late, which is good. But I put down to breathe whenever I experience a situation that irritates me. So that would definitely help. I said 9 for the career. So I put down that other people at my hotel have been constantly praising me and thanking me for all the hard work that I do. So I definitely have a strong work ethic. I'm late for a shift in 2.5 years at the hotel. Sick for a scheduled shift. I could probably do to improve is just to move a career that I'm down. And for time, I said 6, and I wrote down I'm good at making plans and not following through with them. So the hardest part for me right now is just that there's not much that I'm really beholden to in my schedule. Perhaps with this internship that might actually change a little bit. But when I'm not committed to activity, I can get pretty lazy, and I can put off pretty important things, video games and YouTube. Pretty good at prioritizing my tasks, and time to relax. Get to me too much. That was just to find more activities that are and to follow through with them. So that's kind of a 2-part it's, I have the reasons why I want to do things. It's important to me, and then, so yeah. So if you want to go and take a look in the book, pages 34 to 49, and as yourself, I definitely think it's worth it because it can open your eyes to a lot of different things. The last section that Maurice goes through is on goal setting, and he writes down he puts down some of the reasons why you would want to be a good goal setter. And so the reasons he gives is that he says it gives direction to your subconscious mind. It empowers you. When you set goals in all the areas of your life, you act as the creator of your life, not the victim. It contributes to building a healthy amount of self-esteem. It changes your present reality. And it improves your health. So the biggest, I think the biggest takeaways that I took from that section were to start small and to write them down. And starting small, obviously, is that, he says in there that, the more successes that you can have, the more confidence you'll get in taking on life's challenges. So, as you start to, you'll feel more and more confident and write them down, which is probably something that I haven't really been doing very well. I'm not really sure where I would write everything and put them in a place where I would see them. If you have any suggestions about, I don't know if you write your goals down or where you put them if you do, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I write a lot of my goals down on paper, but then to make sure they're in the same spot, I usually use Google Docs. I have all kinds of spreadsheets of goals and numbers and progress and all that stuff. So for me, I usually write it down on paper first, but then I end up using Google Docs because that way I can get to it anywhere to look at my goals. And the important thing I think about goals is we always talk about it's not about the hitting the goal, it's about who you become in the process and what you do to get there. People think so differently about goals than when it comes to say a goal of making a certain amount of money, or like you talking about getting a job, Josh, or something like that, versus saying something like, I have a goal of going on a trip. So like, I just came back yesterday from an 11-day trip with my family. And it's interesting. It's like, well, guess what? I went on the trip and we did everything that we said we were going to do. Well, not everything. Well, one or two things we changed, but everything else that we said we were going to do, we did. You say, well, obviously, Eric, all you have to do is, and then you start listing out the action steps. You say, well, you booked your flight, and then you booked the rent-a-car, and then you had to drive, and then you had to do this. And you do all this stuff, but you say, well, you forget the part where, there was a detour on the road and you had to go out the different exit and find a different way. You forgot that one of the things you had planned, you actually had to sign up for ahead of time and you didn't look into it. So then you had to figure out how you still get to go anyway. And, we were traveling with the baby, so he has to stop to go to the bathroom and do this and do that. So it's funny, like you go on a vacation at the end, you say, oh, we did all the things we said we were going to do. And you just automatically assume, but then you automatically assume, you say, well, I did it because I visualized it and I took action and we did it. But because it's a trip and not a different type of goal, you forget the fact that there was some challenges, some things that went wrong. But the reason we were able to achieve all our goals is because we knew what we wanted to do. Like we weren't going to stop till we got to the hotel that we were staying at. We weren't going to stop till we visited the national parks that we wanted to visit or got to we finished in Las Vegas. So it's funny because like a trip is maybe, I don't know if it's exciting or you schedule it a lot ahead of time and then you follow through afterwards. I don't know what the deal is exactly, but it's funny when you go on a trip, for the most part, you end up doing what you said you were going to do, but it's not always straight up forward. I know when Josh, when you went to Date with Destiny, I think it was Date with Destiny, you guys got stuck in the airport in a different city. Well, you still made it where you were going. You still enjoyed the event and all that stuff. So I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but it's kind of like for goals that are more, I don't know if it's like on us, but they're more like even the scheduling is on us. It's not like, oh, I booked a flight, so it's booked. Well, when it's more on us to do these different things, a lot of times we just don't have this general assumption that it's just going to happen. Whereas if, a trip is still a goal, like, being able to afford the trip and then scheduling the trip and then doing the trip, it's all still part of a goal. And a lot of us just assume everything's just going to fall into place. So it usually does. There's some challenges, but for the most part, you do what you schedule. When it comes to other goals, sometimes we have challenges with that, mainly because we're not as specific as we are when it comes to things like maybe traveling. So that was just an example.
Yeah. Yeah, I got stuck in Dallas on the way out there, I think it was, because I think they had ice storms at the time in the middle of December. So
yeah, how you were talking about earlier, the whole concept of people getting mad, because their car broke down and their flight's delayed or whatever. But you got to kind of think. So, are you mad that your car broke down because it could have kept going and maybe you would have lost your brakes on the highway and then you'd be in big trouble? Or would you rather have flown in that flight and flown into that ice storm or into that tornado or whatever? So people a lot of times focus on the inconvenience instead of focusing on, what it is that they're gaining by not following through on that. You're not putting yourself in danger. You're in safety. So just something to keep in mind.
yeah. When I was coming home from a Cutco conference out in St. Louis, and some delays with flights and stuff like that night. I guess there's a lot of inclement weather in Chicago, and I guess there were Oklahoma and stuff like that. So so I eventually went up to the not the flight attendant, the desk agent at the airport, and I was like, "You sound like you could use some moral support." And she was like, "Yeah, I really could." Dealing with frustrating people all day, and so yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like I always kind of get that way in the airport too. Like if there's ever like a delay or something like that, I'm always like, well, we're eventually gonna take off, and whatever's supposed to happen is gonna happen. So, um, and it's gonna happen in the way that it's supposed to happen, and so, um, yeah, that might mean it's saving me from a larger tragedy, like you said. So yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I've gotten out of the book.
Short and
Dry a
sweet.
little bit. So unless you have anything else, Eric, I can probably just close it up from here. So
Not too much else. I mean, I think that I really liked the book. I mean, it was short, it was to the point, it reiterated a lot of the ideas. I thought the exercise you had us do was awesome. And I think, if you're someone watching, whether you're a newbie or a veteran in personal development and leadership, our group can really help you because, these are the things that if you're not focused on them, even if you learned it 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 30 years ago, you may have done some of these things to be able to achieve goals, but what's keeping you motivated now? What's helping you grow? What's keeping you, living your movie and moving forward to the next scene and, creating bigger and better things for you and your family? And it's just like going to the gym. You can't say you went to the gym 10 years ago and that's why you're fit and healthy and feel good. Or, if it's running or walking or yoga or whatever your thing is, you can't just have this intellectual thought that say, oh, I already know that. I learned that a long time ago. Things are constantly changing. There's new approaches, new ideas. So, we definitely love to have you in the group. So, yeah, this is a great call. I definitely got a lot of the exercise. So, so thanks, Josh.
Definitely. Well, this time work for you again next week there, Eric?
Let's see. I'm actually at a conference next Monday, so we'll have to regroup and maybe pick another day. If it works for both you and Mel next week, then you might stay with it. If she's still unavailable, maybe we pick another day. So I'll pose the question in our group chat, and we'll kind of figure it out.
All right, sounds good.
So, all right, live the movie, guys.
Live the movie, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Talk to you soon.